Welcome back to Mystify Me, true crime and enigmatic investigations, where we uncover the world's most baffling mysteries and delve into the chilling stories of those who've evaded justice. Today, we're venturing into the darkest corners of criminal history, exploring a terrifying truth. Some of the most dangerous serial killers are still out there, free, uncaptured, and perhaps even closer than you think. These killers are more than names in cold case files. They are real, living people who have evaded the grasp of the law, leaving behind a trail of fear and mystery. From the shadows, they watch, waiting, unseen. Today, we'll unravel the stories of 5 of the world's most dangerous killers who remain on the loose. Are you ready to face the fear of the unknown? Viewer discretion is strongly advised, as the following stories may be disturbing to some audiences. Our journey begins in the mountains of South America with one of the most prolific and terrifying serial killers in history, Pedro Alonso López, better known as the Monster of the Andes. López's gruesome legacy spans across 3 countries, Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru, where he preyed upon young girls from poor, vulnerable communities in the 1970s and 1980s. López's reign of terror was marked by his horrifying confession to killing over 300 girls, luring them away from bustling marketplaces and remote villages under the pretense of kindness, only to lead them to a tragic fate. His young victims, many of them barely in their teens, were found in shallow graves scattered across the mountains and valleys of the Andes. But the most terrifying part of this story: López was caught in 1980. He confessed to his monstrous crimes, even leading police to the remains of his victims. And yet, after being convicted and sentenced, López served just 14 years in an Ecuadorian prison, a sentence that defies belief given the magnitude of his crimes. In 1998, he was released for good behavior, handed over to Colombian authorities, and simply disappeared. His exact whereabouts since then remain unknown. Authorities fear he could be back in the very same regions where his killing spree began, or worse, targeting new locations. Despite various attempts to track him down, the monster of the Andes remains at large, a chilling reminder that some evils slip through the cracks of justice. Even decades later, the question remains: could Pedro Alonso López still be out there, hunting in the shadows, in a world unaware of the monster that walks among them? Our next case takes us to Northern California, where the streets of San Francisco and its surrounding areas were gripped by fear in the late 1960s. This was the hunting ground of one of the most infamous and elusive killers in American history, the Zodiac Killer. Unlike most criminals, the Zodiac reveled in the attention, taunting law enforcement and the media with cryptic letters, coded messages, and chilling confessions. Between 1968 and 1969, the Zodiac terrorized the Bay Area, claiming responsibility for at least 5 brutal murders. His victims were young couples, ambushed in secluded spots and shot or stabbed without warning. But his body count may be far higher, as the killer boasted of many more murders that authorities were never able to confirm. His calling card? Letters filled with bizarre ciphers, strange symbols, and disturbing threats sent directly to local newspapers. The Zodiac's letters included cryptic ciphers that have baffled experts for decades. In one of his letters he wrote, "I like killing people because it is so much fun," taunting both the police and the public with his cold indifference to life. Despite hundreds of tips, multiple suspects, and ongoing investigations, the Zodiac Killer's identity has never been confirmed. Over 50 years later, many of his ciphers remain unsolved, a puzzle that continues to haunt those who try to crack his twisted code. Was the Zodiac a disturbed genius hiding behind the facade of an ordinary life, or was he something far more sinister? Could he still be alive, living under an assumed identity, watching as the world struggles to unlock the secrets he left behind? The answers may forever remain a mystery, locked away in those cryptic letters and codes, a chilling reminder that not all serial killers are caught, and some might be hiding in plain sight. Unlike most serial killers, Israel Keyes didn't fit the typical profile. He didn't seek attention, didn't leave a calling card, and never targeted victims based on a consistent pattern. Instead, Keyes was a methodical predator, operating with a level of cold, calculated precision that has left investigators haunted by the scope of his crimes. Keyes crisscrossed the United States, meticulously planning each murder years in advance. He would bury kill kits, plastic containers filled with weapons, restraints, and cash, in isolated locations, sometimes thousands of miles from where he lived. Then, when the time was right, he would travel back to these locations, choosing his victims at random. Men, women, young or old, it didn't matter. What mattered to Keyes was control, and his ability to strike without leaving a trace. In 2012, after kidnapping and murdering 18-year-old Samantha Koenig in Alaska, Keyes was finally caught. His chilling confessions left authorities stunned as he described a life of unrestrained violence. He admitted to at least 11 murders across the country, but hinted at many more. Victims who remain unidentified, buried in remote, forgotten graves. Keyes was a master of covering his tracks, and tragically, after being captured, he took his own life, leaving a void in the investigation and countless unanswered questions. Perhaps the most terrifying aspect of Keyes was his total lack of emotion. He saw his murders as part of a twisted hobby, not for fame or recognition, but for his own private satisfaction. His death robbed us of knowing the true extent of his crimes. And while Keyes himself is no longer a threat, we may never know just how many lives he claimed. Is it possible he had accomplices who are still out there, continuing his brutal work? Our next case takes us to the seemingly peaceful shores of Long Island, New York, where a predator has been lurking in plain sight for over a decade. This faceless murderer, known as the Long Island Serial Killer, or LISK, has left behind a trail of brutal slayings that continue to haunt both investigators and the local community. The shadow of fear cast by these unsolved killings stretches far beyond the initial discovery, reminding everyone that danger can sometimes lie hidden in the most unexpected places. In 2010, a routine search for a missing woman led police to a shocking discovery: human remains scattered along the isolated stretch of Gilgo Beach. What began as a single investigation quickly turned into a horrifying realization that they were dealing with a serial killer. Over the course of several months, at least 10 victims were unearthed, most of them young women who had been working as escorts. In a cold and calculated manner, the killer had carefully dismembered their bodies and disposed of them across different locations, making it clear that he had gone to great lengths to cover his tracks and prevent authorities from piecing together the full scope of his crimes. Even more chilling, investigators believe that these murders could stretch back as far as the late 1990s, meaning the killer may have been operating undetected for well over 2 decades. The LISK case is defined by a level of methodical brutality rarely seen. Whoever the killer is, he has managed to evade capture for years, despite extensive efforts by both local law enforcement and the FBI. His knowledge of how to avoid detection has allowed him to slip through the cracks of the investigation, leaving behind a trail of terror and unanswered questions. Is he still watching from the shadows, waiting to claim another victim? Or has he retreated, content in knowing his crimes have left an entire region gripped by fear and uncertainty? Speculation continues to swirl around who the Long Island serial killer might be. Some believe he could be a local, someone with an intimate understanding of the area's geography, while others suspect he may have connections to law enforcement, using his insider knowledge to stay a step ahead of the investigation. Despite numerous leads and years of searching, no arrests have been made, and the true identity of LISK remains one of the most baffling mysteries in modern criminal history. The question on everyone's mind is terrifying. How long will it be before this elusive predator strikes again? And will investigators ever be able to bring him to justice before it's too late? Our final case takes us back to the 1980s, along a quiet and scenic stretch of road in Virginia known as the Colonial Parkway. This picturesque route, once popular with couples seeking a peaceful escape, became the backdrop for a chilling mystery: the unsolved murders attributed to the Colonial Parkway Killer. Between 1986 and 1989, this elusive predator targeted at least 8 victims, all young couples during late-night outings. The serenity of the parkway was shattered as these victims were brutally attacked and left to die. The killer ambushed couples in secluded spots using extreme force to overpower them. Their bodies were found either inside or near their vehicles, sometimes in positions that suggested the crime scenes had been staged. What made the murders particularly terrifying was the killer's ability to leave behind almost no evidence. There were no clear motives, no significant forensic clues, and no prime suspects to lead authorities towards solving the case. Despite the brutality, the killer left investigators grasping at shadows, unable to connect the dots. The most unnerving aspect of this case is how the murderer managed to remain completely undetected. How could someone repeatedly strike without leaving a trace? Was this person familiar with the area's secluded spots, or perhaps someone the victims trusted enough to let their guard down? Despite extensive investigation, the FBI has been unable to crack the case for more than 3 decades, leaving behind an unsettling void of answers. To this day, the Colonial Parkway murders remain unsolved, and the lack of closure continues to haunt the region. Could the killer still be out there, blending into society, living quietly, unnoticed? Or has the murderer taken their secrets to the grave? The beauty of the Colonial Parkway conceals a dark history, one that lingers as a grim reminder of the horror that unfolded along its scenic path. The ghosts of these unsolved murders still loom over the area, leaving an enduring mystery that remains as chilling today as it was over 30 years ago. These cases remind us of a chilling truth. Some of the most dangerous individuals are still out there, hiding in the shadows, evading justice. From the calculated methods of Israel Keys to the cryptic taunts of the Zodiac Killer, these criminals live on, both in the mystery of their crimes and the fear they instill in all of us. So what drives a person to such darkness, and how do they continue to slip through the cracks of the law? The answers may never come, but the fear that they could strike again lingers in the air like a ghost of unfinished business. If you found this investigation into the world's most dangerous uncaptured serial killers as fascinating as it is terrifying, make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to MystifyMe, True Crime and Enigmatic Investigations, so you never miss our deep dives into the world of the unknown. Share this video with your friends, and let's keep exploring the darkest mysteries together. Until next time, stay safe, and remember, evil never truly disappears. It simply hides where we least expect it.